Sure, if I don't finish my cookie, I'll have to mouth now.
My glasses are steaming up.
Hey, Tim.
Yes, ma'am.
Lisa, are you going to continue since you started the last meeting? Will you continue to run it this time?
Sure.
Okay, because I don't think we closed out the last meeting, right? We just postponed it till this evening.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call a continuation of the last meeting to order. Can I have a roll call? John Levin? Yeah.
Where's Mark?
Everyone will.
Lisa and Jim, so 4 out of the 5.
Texted Bart just now. We are expecting him to join remotely.
Okay, public participation, and just before we do that, the only thing on the agenda tonight, and the fellow board members can correct me if I'm wrong, is the pickleball complex presentation, and that is it for tonight's special board meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct, because that's what we announced at the last board meeting.
That's right, I just want to make sure that's clear. So with that said, we have a pickleball complex presentation, public participation.
I think they did that last.
I'm just reading it as we go.
Okay. I asked what I was supposed to do tonight, and they said prepare, and they didn't say anything.
I take that.
I can do a presentation.
No, they did the presentation at the last.
I'm just reading
business
this.
meeting.
Go
The
ahead.
thing, Jim, is probably we need to decide where it's gonna go. We went out, we looked at the golf course area. We talked with the consultants, and it's not going, there's no way to redesign that for safety. The problem is, when you tee off, the teeing area goes, you have to have so wide, then it goes in a cone shape out. And the farther you go out, the wider it gets. And if you go within that range, in other words, if we were to redesign it to where it went in that range, we would be liable. In other words, it's just not safe. So no one's going to approve that or agree to it. So then what I did is I've been meeting, I met yesterday. Was it yesterday, Casey? Yeah. I met with the school board chairman, superintendent, and the facility director for the school, with the idea of where are some additional sites. We had looked at the site over at Rainy Field, where the tennis courts are, and it would go down that way from the tennis courts down towards Young Park. They have the site for a grade school, for a middle school, and there was some questions about how that would work in. At the same time, the facility director said that the site in Dundee, which is a little over 15 acres, that we would be able to build it there in conjunction with the new school. That particular area is the land that the school district bought to build the new middle school. That is off of Edwards Drive. There's 17 acres in there. They mentioned that the parking lot would be more than large enough to accommodate for tournaments and those type things. And that's as far as we've gotten.
So Don, what about, I mean, don't we have as well right near there that other like 5-acre park that's, or piece of land that's supposed to be a park? Right in the same area?
We do have the 5 acres there, but I think at the last meeting, the committee was concerned about going over the overpass and how far it was, which this is more into the Dundee. It's right by the bypass. And it has probably better visibility. If I had to pick between the two, I'd pick the school area. And let me say this, I told the superintendent, the chairman, that we would need at least a 99-year lease on that. That means that long-term. They realized that. There was some comments that at the Rennie site, they wouldn't want to go longer than 10 years because they had not done the site. And I said, well, 10 years, we're not interested. At the same meeting with Rennie, we talked about building, as the board is aware, one of our priorities is a soccer complex and with outdoor fields. And they were willing to give us the field area there and we would convert that, but that's up and beyond. As a matter of fact, I believe Julie is working on a project now whereby we would receive for $700,000 to do exactly that. And so they agreed. When I say they agreed, it has to go back to the board, the full school board, but the people there did not seem to have a problem with it. So that's where we left it.
And which land was that?
What? So I guess my question is, so if we're going with where the new elementary school is going to be built in Dundee, what kind of time frame are we looking at on that particular site, given that they, I mean, I don't know where they're at in their development process. I know they got their money approved, but have they started their designs, and how does that work, and what's that time frame?
According to Larry, that's probably the fastest site that could be utilized. When I say the fastest, they're in the process already of design of that particular area. And he felt that there was more than sufficient land for the middle school and that there was additional land that was left over for the pickleball. Again, it would be how we design it. He suggested that the pickleball go next to the freeway or the bypass area.
I mean, that makes sense. But it's more a question of relying on another entity that has to go through this whole approval process and the potential for the delays. And then what if it doesn't happen? And then where does that leave the pickleball folks, particularly if they go after this grant and they are awarded? I'm guessing there's going to be timeframes on that money as well. So I'm trying to figure out if we have property that could move it more quickly.
There is 2 other sites. One site is up at Shad Park, which is off of, I can't remember the name of the road there, Crowell Creek Road. The second area would be, again, in Dundee. We do own quite a bit of land there where the existing tennis courts are. And we also own the land across. If we get the middle school and we could build it in that area.
Grade school.
You mean the elementary school?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that would kind of make sense though, too, since we already have parkland there. And then isn't the Sanders Estate right across the street?
That's correct. And we could build it again behind the house that it currently exists. We could build it back there. I think there is sufficient room. Again, we would have to look at the blueprint, lay it on the ground and go that way. We had originally scheduled for a kitchen to go in that area. Talking with Jan, who gave the property, Jan felt that if we got the school, she agreed that the kitchen would be in the school itself, which it has a full-fledged kitchen. So that has been the conversation.
That would be a lot of use of.
And do you think that this Dundee City Council would be okay with making those modifications to that space to add pickleball courts there? Because that seems like a better spot. More people are going there for park and recreational activities anyway, closer to their downtown to wander around. It just seems like that would be a better spot, and we're not looking at another jurisdiction's decision-making before we can try to figure out what we're going to do.
If I could raise a couple of points, I was just looked at the space behind the school. That's to the right, that would be to the north of it, and then to the west. It's less than 2 acres. Let's see, and that's what surrounds us. Let's see, let me make sure I got this right. Hold on. That's the wrong number, pardon me.
Yeah.
We're talking about the area right across from Sanders Park, right?
I think they were talking.
They got it up on the screen now.
About
Yeah.
this particular.
You're talking, basically, you're talking about everything southeast of the ball field.
Yeah, this particular area, and this particular area.
So that's, parking would take over all that, essentially.
Well, there will be a major parking lot built right here. And we already have a parking lot there, and we have a parking lot up there.
Okay.
They're both small parking lots.
Yeah, this area, go ahead and run it back up. Is, let's see. Should have got rid of where it goes. Okay, we're not talking about the houses, we're talking about this. That's
That can also be expanded on one side too into the parkland.
That's barely over an acre right there. One of the courts would take that up.
That's
That's just that,
the field of the playground.
yeah.
One court would take up an acre?
It's
One
40,000 square feet.
Facility.
One facility.
One
Oh, the facility.
Well,
When you said one
courts.
court, I'm going, wait a second, that's a
There are
big
two
pickleball court.
facilities, 12 courts each. That would take up about that much.
And you want
About
two of
90
them.
That's one building.
And you want two.
two of those. So the vast majority of this is all parking. It's not, and the parking can be shared because we don't need the peak parking. That's the reason I mentioned out there, the golf course is a trailhead to share. Get them out of the golf course parking lot. This, until this was torn down, and I don't
That's
think
what we
that,
win.
yeah, I don't know when that's gonna happen. That's, there's nothing that we can even discuss about that. And so then you're encroaching on, this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we'll say 10. So it's 20, so it would take 25 of those to accommodate about 500 cars. Now, whether that's what we end up with Bill, I'm just saying that's what we'll take.
Well, you wouldn't need 500 cars.
I looked at what happened out at Pine Nursery, and they overwhelmed like a 250, 300 car parking lot for 5 days and just drove the park crazy and the busing people and everything else. That's the reason a shared facility worked better, the way you're using it for other things during that time. So I don't think, when these aren't going away, and probably that's not going away. Because, all people are there gonna be concerned about that, and they're gonna raise a lot of hell. And I don't blame them.
I think another potential concern with Dundee is all the data that we ran. The money that could be made off this facility, we considered a lot of people coming from the metro area, Beaverton, Tigard, Tualatin, Wilsonville. And putting it in Dundee takes that from a 30 to 35 minute drive to a 40 to 45 minute drive. And I know it's only 10 minutes, but when you want someone to come out Wednesday night after work, that's gonna make a big difference. I drove 30 minutes to play last night, but if it was 45 minutes, I would.
I did the same thing. I drove 30, but I'm 45 to 50 is getting to the point where I'm not gonna do it.
And if, we wanna bring in the potential income off this, having it within 35 minutes of those metro areas would be really important.
In any case, that site, I don't know about this new school site, when that's gonna be built, when they're gonna, do they even own the land now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know what that is, so I can't comment on one or another.
So I have two questions about the new school site in Dundee. So one is, okay, you talked about, they're willing to talk about a 99-year lease, but what are the terms of the lease? How much are they expecting us to give them? That's the first question. And then my second concern is whether or not the school district is looking at this as a way for them to get out of having to pay the full cost of developing the road. Because there's no doubt that that road is gonna have to get fixed and developed when the school goes down there. And, they should be the ones on the hook for doing that because they're the ones building the school. And I don't want them to turn around and say, oh, well, you guys pay for half the road since you got this facility down here now. That just jacks our cost way up.
My understanding, that would not be the case, but again,
I'm
as
just
you
bringing
well
it up.
know, we didn't go into all the details. Larry just said, as facility director, that was the best place of all the areas that we discussed with them about that. And that will be developed within, matter of fact, within the next 3 years maximum, they have to do that because of the bond.
That site's intriguing from the point of when we complete the bypass trail, it's going to dump off in that area. People that come from Newburgh that may want to play pickleball can just ride their bike from Newburgh over there. I think that did Larry or anybody talk about other things there besides that? Since they have so much acreage, are they talking us helping them with fields? Do they want to park or bless this or what? Or did they?
I talked to Larry. They were all there, and I talked about the land that they have out on the Wilsonville Road. They have 40-something acres out there. And I said, would you be willing to utilize that or let us move one of the holes, which we could do, if it was necessary, or build the pickleball courts on that. He wasn't keen on it. He said, I'm not sure. They also own 5 acres there across the road for, that they were gonna build a grade school. I talked to him about that property as well. I said, would you consider that? They didn't make a commitment one way or the other, and he said, I don't want to go there. He kind of pushed the Dundee site, where the new grade school is. Was that your interpretation?
Yep. Yeah, he said that was land was bought with bond money and was there for investment.
And for a point of transparency, I had a meeting today with Kiwanis Club, and Larry was there, and he mentioned the same thing to me.
Now, the chairman of the board and the other people there was not opposed to the Rennie site. They like that
They
idea.
just don't have a footprint, for a school. They want to build a middle school. They don't have any idea how big it is or how big the footprint is, so they're a little leery of committing to a long-term lease.
My wife, having been involved with that, had, at the one time, they were saying they didn't want to build any more schools in the central city. And that was, so they took that off the board. Rennie is certainly a good location, but as you well know, what will happen as soon as you site something there, you're going to be improving every street on 3 sides to exactly what you did in front of the cultural center. That's exactly what will happen. Oh, sorry, Lisa's listening. And that will be the real expense of all this. It will be far beyond what, I mean, you could tell me what that street cost in the front and multiply it by about, I don't know, 10.
Well, 6th Street was all district road. It's Blaine and 9th Street.
So it's not to say that we can change it again, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with that site. It's plenty big. I mean, I figured, just moving straight off the district, eating the courts and just moving over to heading west until you hit the other side of that other parking on the other side of that. Plenty of room. There's 10 acres there, plus a huge buffer site for the existing ball fields and people who get in the outfield there. Wouldn't be any interference at all. Then you'd have, parking if you ever wanted to up the rest of that. And, that's one of the things that earmark that the Georges are going after is improvement in that area, just as an entry level. But I can just see the city going, well, thank you very much. We'll take all that money in the form of improvements. You'd be into millions of dollars to get that done. The city wants to, write you a saying, we will not prosecute, we'll just leave it as is because you had a population there of X number and you're not, as far as schools and so forth. And we don't need those system development charges. Great, but I don't think you're gonna get that. But no, Rennie School would be fine. It's unused space. Another thing you can do is trade off the stuff behind Chehalem Valley Middle School that, you haven't done. That's been out there vacant for what, 26, 27 years now. They use it at no cost to the school district. That's 5 acres,
Chehalem Valley.
middle school.
Yeah, we have softball out there.
Oh,
No,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the complex.
Yeah,
No, this is,
Practice out there.
we're talking about the empty field to the
Football
west of the
field.
complex.
the football field.
yeah.
Well, it's, you can go look at the satellite photographs, they're not doing much football out there.
No, but they do warm up. They use that for softball.
Well, I understand, I'm just saying, since they're using it,
At the school.
it may be a
When-
tip that you can trade.
When we did that particular area, we agreed with the school district that we would forget about boundaries because they couldn't build the middle school there without that piece. So we basically forgot about boundaries and worked with the school district by which to do that. we kind of agreed to that, and I would not want to go away from that. The board could do what it wants, but I think when you kind of agree to something, you should stick to it.
Well, it would only formalize the agreement by saying, okay, now it's yours. Not taking them away.
Yeah.
I'm not proposing that. We have gone down that road and determined that they use the properties.
I
But
think
that may be
it's,
some leverage for you.
this deal, we talked about it yesterday. It's like taking a quarter out of the right pocket and putting it in the left pocket. It's the public's, really. It's just the school district and Park and Rec, but it's still the public's. How we work together to better serve the public. And from the acting superintendent and people there, they all seem to agree with that. That was their focus.
Good, could you go explain that to the city, please?
It would be a huge benefit that they were to approve that whole.
Well, they've already started part of the gentrification down by the bypass, and it's just only gonna move east and north. So,
Don, I've got another question on land use. If they sited out at the, off the Wilsonville Road there, that's county, it's in the county.
That's correct.
And so where's that?
We could get
Gateway.
into land use problems there.
I've checked with this with Ken Friday, and that's a supervisor that,
I
all
know,
that
yeah,
staff. that
I know,
does it.
yeah, I know.
Okay. And I asked him specifically, number one, here is the exact thing we're proposing, all the buildings, the parking and everything, okay, onto this property. How will that, first of all, is that permissible under the existing permits? And he said, yes, but you have to refile. It's cost you $3,600. It's gonna take minimally 6 weeks because people can protest and all this other stuff. And I said, okay, let's assume we're refused. How does that impact the existing permits? He says, doesn't impact them at all, no impact. Because I said, I do not want it in any way interfere by a permit application that's already been approved. And he said, you still gotta go through the permit process, but he said it's within the scope of what you've asked for, or what you've been permitted.
Well, from what I'm hearing though from you, Don, is that if we don't have an expansion of that land, we really can't put it on there because of the way those golf balls are gonna be flying, is that correct?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
I looked at it, and based on the movement of the holes and what I know about design, and I was pretty heavily in design of the current, it would not be recommended by any golf course designer. What do you think, Casey?
You would have to redo the entire thing
Okay, thank you.
and reduce it to, like it would be an executive type.
Could I respectfully input here? Okay. One of the first things I did looking at your existing courses was how much actual ground was consumed by the courses. And I can't remember, it was the front 9, you had X amount, and you had out of the playable acres, which you can clearly see in aerials and so forth, and cart paths, you had a certain amount, and out of the total amount that, you had, I've got the numbers here, let me just quote them. But in the back 9, which you had a certain amount, both of these courses, the front 9 and the back 9, were what they consumed in playable area was less than what you use here. In essence, if we had 70 usable acres, which is what you have on the third 9, I believe the second 9 only consumed 67 acres. The first 9 was, I'd say 2 acres above that. So as far as, and the back 9, the third 9 is on tabletop. You didn't have that luxury in the first 2 9s. You had to build around topography and did a great job of it. And you had to place a lot of holes to comply with the topography and make it a challenging course. The designer obviously did a good job, it's got a great reputation. The back nine, the third nine, doesn't have any of those geographic restrictions. The fact is, you only got kind of one hole that actually clears the gully. That's, I forgot 7 or something. And the one coming back off the tee, it clears a creek or something, but it clears a cart path. So I think and first of all, essentially the cardboard cutouts I gave you were, geez, this is a look at it, do it this way. They weren't recommending any changes in the course layout.
They imposed a lot of safety up.
Well, I think there's a group on the first 9 or the second 9 that's over in the far corner that you've got a lot of stuff pretty tight in there. Now, I'm not here to debate what safety hazards are or what a right course design is, but I know that the designers, your designer, did an excellent job with less space. And my only point is that, I think the back of the second 9 was a lot more, well, I shouldn't say that. The houses you had to build around. But the third 9 seems to have less challenges as far as, since you have a lot of open ground, it's all flat, there's really little or no grade to it, that it can be done pretty simply. And since it's a CAD system, he's just got to move holes, not change the design. There's really not a lot of money involved in that. I mean, if he wants to redesign the whole course and he tells you he's got to do it, well, that's fine. That's what his opinion is. I can't tell you that he's wrong. But I know what CAD systems are. I have a lot of experience in that, and moving those holes is no big deal, particularly if you maintain the exact design, short of trees. So that's my 10 cents. But that's where we are in planning. As far as, I mean, there's a risk there. They may not approve it. Okay, it's, 1,000 friends may come in and jump all over them like they did the highway department. And Don and I discussed the potential of people opposing in that area.
Right.
So,
That was my largest concern when we talked about it, was the group.
It's actually
Yeah.
one attorney.
So back to the Rennie site, one of the things that I know, and Casey knows, is that we have a problem with overflow from the skate park when they have events, or the BMX track when they have events. Having additional parking over there, would that be part of the plan if we put that over there? That may help to rectify some of those problems that we have. We don't have a train going through there anymore, which was a problem, but that's another angle you could look at as far as overflow parking. And I would assume if the city has, if you put parking in there and you have to pave it, then you've got water retention issues and everything else that go with that. Yes.
My concern is when we put this into a residential area, which I would consider Rennie Field to be residential, is the noise. And that was pointed out to me by Hunter and Cheryl. And, I've sat and I've listened and I've been in at Sun River, and it is noisy. I mean, it's similar to the issues that you have at the softball fields, because that is a super noisy, not so much the play, but the participants. Is that a nice neighborhood to deal with? Or are we going to make a lot of people angry?
And I think to piggyback on that, with the same thing with the neighborhoods, I was there tonight running around the track from 4:30 to 5:15 right before this, and while I was there was 18 people, separate people, using that area, playing Frisbee, playing soccer with their kids, and especially if we took that out, and a large amount of that is parking lot. As a community member, I would hate that. Even, that my space that I would go take my kids to play soccer is now a parking lot that gets used a few weekends a year, like filled a few weekends of the year for tournament.
The noise issue too, I mean, you have to think about the hours that this would be operating into the evening. It's an unusual noise with the ping of the ball on the racket. It's not, it's not so much, the participant, it's just kind of an annoying sound if it's all quiet and, dark, and then I think it'd be really annoying as a neighbor.
I think Shad Park, that area, I've been up there, I've walked up there a lot. And that sound would just carry right down into the greens.
Well, I'm gonna respectfully disagree with both of my committee members here, so.
Go ahead.
First of all, as we've experienced it, Jake, with being maybe 100 feet off the houses and the church and so forth, I don't think you guys are getting any complaints.
We're not that close to,
You're about 100 feet off from those houses along the back. There's some trees there, anyway. The area, if we were gonna use Rennie, you locate the things away from the houses, you locate it to the center of the property. They've got kids there, that's a lot of noise. They've got baseball games there in the south part of the field and so forth, that's a lot of noise. The light might, I don't think the light would be a problem because they're used to all that in the neighborhood. The recreational facilities there currently generate noise. These would be there, 365 days a year. But the noise levels, given the distances, I don't think the pickleball thing's gonna be an issue. I think the bigger issue, and you'll find out from the city, is when they hit you with SDCs for all the stuff around there. Assuming you can even get the property for the school on a long-term lease.
So I'm curious what route, I appreciate what you said about people not wanting to drive that extra distance to Dundee, but I'm just kind of thinking here about, okay, somebody's coming from Beaverton or Tiger. I mean, how are they gonna, if we were to build them out off Wilsonville Road, I mean, they're not gonna know or try to turn left off of 99W in the middle of Rex Hill and try to go down Corral Creek. So they're gonna go to Springbrook, they're gonna go all the way down Springbrook, they're gonna go through those lights, they're gonna turn left, go to the new Wilsonville Road, and I mean, I'm not convinced that it's time-wise all that much quicker to get there that way than it would be just to head on to Dundee.
The Dundee is 6 miles further. I measured it from basically the intersections on 99, not 99, but 219, because that's where the turnoffs come in either case. You would see them coming over the hill on 99, you see them, but as we all know, the real bypass goes down McKay Road. Now, so anybody in the city's actually gonna drive down 5, hit McKay Road, come across and come up. That's just the way traffic moves today, and nothing will say what's changed that. So that's how they're gonna get here. 99 over the hill on 219, from the south on 99, and up 219 off of McKay Road. That will be the path to getting to the Wilsonville Road. And then they're gonna take that new exit, the exit that's currently there, which will be turned around and matched with Winooski, and hopefully a signal there, otherwise it'll be more dead bodies. But that's how they get there. The other choice is drive down, take those same routes, head down the bypass for 5 miles, try to snake back through Dundee. And Dundee City has done those people no favors back as far as road access. It's a joke. And that's what you were talking about, is what they're gonna hit you for, to put in a brand new road that finally gets around all the nonsense they've allowed. So, I mean, that's basically the facts that we're dealing with. I don't think it's a perfect solution. So should we be fortunate enough to get this grant, that thing has to be done in 18 months.
We will find out about the grant on March 1st.
Yep.
And by March 15th, the funds will be dispersed.
I
So I
have
just received an email about that today.
a question on that. When you say it has to be done in 18 months, a lot of times with these grants, if you're running the roadblocks, they give you extensions. At least in the grants I've worked with the state. So it's not like it's say 18 months, boom, this is it. So I just want to be clear. I would assume, and I'm not saying it is or isn't, but I would assume that they're saying, okay, you don't get it done, but it's moving forward, you're doing the planning, you're doing the engineering, whatever, okay.
Here's the real issue. When I first went, I got cost on those buildings, just the tents, okay. They came in at, it was a little over 1.1 each. Now they're at 1.4 each, 1.2 each, now they're 1.4 each, those tents. That's what's gonna kill it. The time you get down there, you know, you put this thing off, you're gonna be at another 50% cost without breaking a sweat. That's true of any project you guys are involved in.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Casey definitely knows.
there's nothing any of us can do about it. That's just a fact. I asked him to rebid it, and then we got prevailing wage, how that's gonna impact it, and all the rest of it, and how we get around that. But that's gonna be the real thing that will, you know, then we're gonna be out for money again. You know, if the first one expires, it will go back.
Don, do you have any direction for us here, or any other comments from the board?
Well, the committee has worked hard on the property out on Wilsonville Road. We could always go that way, build this, because we don't know when we're going to do the golf course. But we would have to redesign it, that's a given. But that's left up to the board.
Hey, Don, so the third 9 that you have right now, has there been any kind of approvals for that third 9 yet?
No, we've not
Like-
submitted anything.
The county,
You haven't submitted anything to the county?
No.
the county thinks it's approved.
Okay.
Well, when we submitted the original, they knew what we were going to do out there. And we included all the property. But my guess is when we get down to it, knowing how everything land use works, we'll have to go back through it. But that's just a matter of months.
How much does a golf course redesign cost? And does that cost CPRD, or does that come from your funding?
Redesign, I believe the original was 75,000. Is that correct, Casey?
90,000.
Was it 90? But I would challenge him on the redesign. I'd want it for less. And I agree with your statement about the CAD and the other things, but some of that could exist, but other things would have to be done, depending on what we took out. And if you're talking about 2 buildings, we'd have to go in and place that in and see what we could do. Could it be done? Probably. But the board's got to make that decision. When are we going, or are we going to build the next 9 and when? And then you've got the idea of, do you give up the grant, or do we go to another site? What do we do? I don't think there's any easy answers.
I agree with you, Don. There aren't any easy answers. I think it's the other thing that's a little hard is that this third 9 has been designated for quite a bit of time with the anticipation that there would be a third 9. So letting everybody know that all of a sudden, if it can work, it's great, right? But I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the requirements are going to be for the parking and what you have. Is it sufficient? And is there enough space there to make more parking, and on and on and on and on with the development? But, you know, I just would, it would be really unfortunate if we design this in that space and you can't get that third 9 in at the end of the day, because I think the public has understood that there's a third 9 that's going to be coming when we can afford it. So I'm just going to put that out there. There is already 18 holes, so you have a full golf course, but I think people have in their head that that was going to be for a third 9. So whatever we do, I really want to make sure if we use some of that space that we can still get a third 9 on there, because I think that's kind of what we've promised the community so far. That makes it a little bit challenging for me, even though I don't play golf. So
what we need to do is meet with the school board. I think you as a board need to meet with the school board. 2 things are going on.
Or at least 4 of them. Sorry.
Anyway, when we meet with the school board, we can talk about, as you well know, next door, they have 40 acres. If they would agree, since we're going to invest in building part of the middle school with the football fields and those type things, which we will do, there would be an advantage for them to work with us on this. I just see an opportunity here to better serve the community. But again, it's going to take, to put all this together, it's going to take at least a month. And of course, putting it together, there'd be nothing wrong with going ahead and have the initial meeting with the school board. And then if we get the money, we know we've got to push it faster. So we'll know that March 1. So that would be the direction I would go.
Could I offer a potential, something you can offer the school board that's minimal risk to them and minimal risk to the district with the minimal amount of risk financially? Move all the parking out of that third 9, leave the buildings there because that's a real investment, and lease the land. And it's gravel. We're not talking about putting asphalt. Then you put in gravel, you're gonna have 8 million people coming, put in asphalt out there, you're gonna have 8 million people coming down the woodworks on drainage and everything else.
Yeah, gravel.
And gravel, big deal. And now it's your footings for whatever you're building. And they lease the land to you for whatever, and they get an improvement.
Well, we can talk to them about it, and I said that to Larry. But when you get a group of people together, better minds prevail. And so if the board's willing, we can move on it or try it.
So just a piece of information. So I map quested Nyberg, right there by Cabela's. So I map quested there to Dundee, the school, and it was 28 minutes. And then I map quested from the same location to the golf course. It's 23 minutes. Took the same thing, and then I went to Rennie Park, and it's 25 minutes. So that's it.
Yeah.
7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
But that just kind of gives you an idea of the different locations from Tualatin.
Our goal is to have the golf course work out as you planned it, maybe move the holes around a little bit. You know, that picture we gave you was just this is the kind of space, how it was allocated. I mean, parking can be anywhere. I mean, the 2 big blocks are the buildings. That's the kind of thing you can't reshape. But everything else can be. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible to accommodate everyone's plans and expectations.
Well, I said last time you folks were here, I've said every time you folks are here, I'm a fan of the pickleball project. And I'm just not a fan of it disrupting my golf course. So, and it'll be over my dead body that there is an executive 9 rather than a full 9. And I will be kicking and screaming to protect the golf course. Now, if we can work it out, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But
so I guess
I
the
am
miniature
not.
golf course is out of the question.
What's that?
The miniature golf course is totally out.
That's what I was questioning, yes. So I'm just, everybody knows that, and I'm just saying it again. I will fight tooth and nail to protect the integrity of the plan of the third 9 of the golf course. But I'm happy to do what we can to make it
Okay.
work if there's a way to make it work.
And I think we are too. And we're not here to get rid of the third night at all. That's not our goal.
And I'm only one of 5 people, but I'm just, I'm just letting you know, yet
But you're the
again,
chief interrogator.
that's where I'm coming from.
Don, I like your stance, and I happen to agree with it. What I like about the Wilsonville Road project, and I know it's a wing and a prayer to get that done. But since nothing is out there, it bodes well, not only for the golf course, but also for pickleball, and then eventually in 10 or 15 years, if they do go ahead with a second high school or middle school or school complex, it would mean to the community that they would be, if they do subdivisions out there, which I'm sure they will, the subdivisions or the people buying those homes already know that complex is there. Being a lover of park and recreation, I think anytime that you can have multiple activities happening at one spot bodes very well for the community. If there's a trailhead there, there's pickleball, if there's golf, and I don't know where they would tee off going. But maybe there'd be a bathroom there, because I always have to pee on the golf course. But I don't pee on the golf course, but I have to find a bathroom, sorry. But it's, and then two, it would give access to the littles at pickleball. They're playing pickleball right now in the gym at the high school.
What I would recommend is that we meet with the school board. We would build the buildings on our property, which I think with a little work, we may be able to redesign some things. I will call him tomorrow and work on that. You said 2 buildings, 40,000 square feet,
Each.
which is
It's not less than an acre.
yeah, 200. And then the parking area, we could lease for $1 the school property, with the idea that if they're not going to use that site for a school, that they would sell us the parking area at whatever cost they get for the rest of the site. And we could work that out. I think that would benefit the community currently and long term. And again, I think the school board would want to do that and wants to do that because they're wanting to move on Rennie as well, and we're going to work with them on that project. And I just think it's a good opportunity. But we can meet with them and see what it is, and I can call the superintendent tomorrow and try to set the meeting up if the board is willing.
One thing I may add to that discussion, there are 2 pieces of property there, both of which abut your property. One of them, as you know, the Wilsonville Road goes out there and takes a hard jog to the right and a hard jog to the left. If you kept going past your property, that's their big section down there. But right where it makes that second jog, right across the road, is their other piece of property. So either one would work.
It's the last meeting that we had one piece we were looking at really, and that was the golf course property. Now we have 2 more pieces that have come up. I think that we should keep all our cards on the table, and if you want to look at that as the first one to go for is the golf course, that's fine. But I think we should also discuss the other 2, or at least keep them in our back pocket, because I don't know where. Because you've got a few different entities you're gonna have to work with to be able to build that out there, unless you call it temporary. So
Anything's more than a few months, it gets right off that category real quick.
that's just
First thing I checked.
that's just my opinion. But it'd be great to have a plan when we go to the school board on which way we're gonna go from time.
Yeah, if you want our participation in any of these things, we'll be glad to do it, but it's your call, whatever.
Well, the reality is we'll know about the grant though, because, you
Yeah,
know,
it's
to
three
try
and
to
a half weeks.
schedule, you know, we're not gonna be able to schedule and then publicly notice a joint meeting if we're really gonna have a majority of the school board and a majority of us. There's, you know, public notice requirements, all
Yes.
that that's not gonna happen before March 1st. Just not, so.
Knowing that I'm still going after more grants, not just that.
The building size, what is the two building size?
It's 160 by 250, 40,000 square feet. That does not include restrooms. It probably includes some spaces that you could sit down and maybe a front office in one of them.
The good news is that we're going to build restrooms for the golf course right there near where you're going to do it. So we'd need to build restrooms there anyway. So that would come out, that would work out fine. But what I'll do is, with the board's permission, I'll ask the superintendent when's the fastest that we can get together.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Want me to motion for that?
Okay.
I just want a consensus, the board, you feel that's the best way to go.
Yeah, Hank, we definitely.
Well, I think that Jim's suggestion was a good one. I think we should be pursuing everything and seeing where the best opportunity lies, not just for pickleball, but for all the other things that have to happen based on what we need. And so part of that is how willing is the school district going to be? How long are they going to take? I mean, are these things that are going to keep anybody from building if you did get the grant? Yes, you can get extensions, but like for how long? So I think that Jim's suggestion on that we move forward with the idea that we have these conversations with the school district, as well as keeping our eye out on what our second and third best alternatives of land we already own that would work, I think are our best bet.
And I really think the Dundee property is similar to the Wilsonville property. If they're going to build a school out there and having pickleball there, it goes to what I was saying about the Wilsonville. It's a complex at that point, and it's that mixed use area.
We'll leave everything on the table. And again, I'll call the superintendent tomorrow and set it up as fast as I can. I believe that they're more than willing, based on the conversations that we had. And he brought up a very good point. He said, money is flowing now, and now is the opportunity. And neither one of us should pass that up. And that came from the superintendent, and I totally agree with him. So that'll be the move that we'll go with and see what happens.
So the other thing you could bring up, if it's gonna be an issue for getting everybody together, is, you know, our board could designate 2 board members and their board could designate, they have 7, so 3 board members. And then, you know, you and the superintendent and their facilities person, and we probably want Casey. I mean, you know, a group like that could meet without having to do all the public notice requirements, as long as it'd be much more difficult for their board to have, you know, consensus that, yeah, we'll go along with what, you know, your representatives agree to. I mean, our board, we'd be fine. We'd come up with 2 people and, you know, we'd be okay that way. There may be a little more of a challenge for their board, but that's at least an option.
That's a good point, Don, and I'll recommend that. But at some point, we should schedule a joint board meeting to approve all that, which we'll have to do it publicly anyway. But I agree with you. That may be, if I don't hear any objections, I'll get with the superintendent and make that recommendation.
Good?
No objections.
All right? That's what we'll do then.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Could I throw in one thing, just as a piece of information on decision point?
But it's gonna cost an extra $1 now.
That's right.
Because we're ready to adjourn.
Okay, what will Tim get me? Totally lost my
It's
wallet.
okay.
No, Anyway, I'm actively lobbying the Georges, representative and her husband, to support this pickleball facility. Now, if this is sideways to something you've got in mind, I need to know it now, and I'll cut it off. She thinks she can get a $720,000 earmark.
I think they're gonna use that, I talked to Larry,
Right.
and so they wanna use that they're gonna put a walking track around, that area, and potentially some bathrooms, and they wanna clean that area up. So I think that was their intent with that money.
Larry,
I spoke to him 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And they were still wishy-washy. That's the reason I'm asking you guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to get sideways with what you're doing.
let me say this, talking with Larry, based on what they're trying to do, I think doing those fields would be well received and would be the way to go. It would also meet the board's priority of some type of soccer complex that we desperately need. And that's probably the best use of that money, which even when we do that, we will still probably have to throw in a couple of $100,000, probably match close to that anyway, to get that project off the ground. That will benefit the school district immensely in the future. And that's part of our bargaining chip, talking with the school district and say, we're willing to do that. I think most people in this community do not know. I asked for Rennie School originally. I was told that I was not going to get Rennie School, that I was going to get Central School. My comment was, I have no idea what to do with Central School. I don't want Central School. I was told, well, that's the one that you're going to get. If the board remembers, and Don was on the board, I think when we did that, that's what we got. And we worked it out for the betterment, I think, of the community with the cultural center. And we worked with committees and we did that, and it worked out good for everyone. And I think this has the same atmosphere, the same situation, that we can work it out to benefit everyone.
In my opinion, I do all the programming for baseball and softball and all the sports activities in town. And that piece of property is the best piece of property in Newburgh and Dundee. It's fantastic. That field is the best field because it used to be the old high school field. And it's fantastic. It has so much, they could do so much with it. Every time I drive by it, we program we have soccer out there. And there are 2 baseball fields out there that are pretty heavily used too. They have 90-foot base paths, and so they're a little different than our Jakewood baseball fields. And it is not utilized. There are hardly any, the high school rugby team uses that field for their high school games. And we have some camps out there, but it is a fantastic piece of property and nobody is using it. And I would love to have it, to be able to use it. It'd be great for the kids in the community. It could really be a really neat area. So that's my 2 cents. We have a lot of people that are infiltrating the CV side of Newburgh, March through October with baseball and softball. Jakewood is absolutely packed. You have people parking on the grass out there. It's crazy. And I love that piece of property. I'd love to do something with it. I think it's just a real great place.
We'll call the meeting.
And just so the rest of the board knows, I did go out on a limb on behalf of the board. Dawn and I happened to run into the current school board chair about a week ago. We started talking about the elementary school there in Dundee and the fact they would be abandoning it and that we would be interested in buying it. And I did tell them that given inflation and such, that we only paid $1 for Central School, that we would be willing to pay $2 for Dundee.
To offset their bond costs.
Yes.
Probably while the board is together, give me 2 board members. Who's going to volunteer to do this? I need 2.
Well, Gail's been on the pickle board committee, so she should be one.
I don't mind at all.
And
All right.
Since I'm going to be defending the sanctity of the golf course, I'm volunteering myself to be the other one.
Is that agreeable to the board? All right, that's the way we'll do it.
Sorry, guys.
Thank you.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn our meeting here.
Actually, I have that.
We did have a motion.
Yeah.
Thanks for your guys'
I asked
time.
for a motion to do-
Second, third, adjourned. We're good.
Okay.
Bob,
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
how are you?
Bye, everybody.